What's up, everybody? Alex here. Welcome back to another episode. Kind of a fun one today. I guess what I'm calling this is the epic record haul from the Vinyl Garage. Before I get into exactly what I'm talking about, it's a Sunday. It is beer and vinyl. Cheers to all of you out there. What are we drinking? We're drinking Vanilla Porter from Founders. Funny thing, I love Founders. I lived in Grand Rapids for a couple years. They're out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. And the Founders Porter is like the go-to porter. I mean, it's amazing. It's robust. It's flavorful. It's got a little bitterness there. So when they announced that there was a vanilla one, I was super pumped about it. I still haven't decided if this works for me. I've had them before. To me, it is sort of some artificial vanilla, and then like the bitterness kind of comes in the back, but not from a balancing way. They almost conflict too much. So at any rate, it's beer, so I'm going to drink it. And yeah, cheers to you all. All right, so I took a trip this weekend up the road a few hours to visit my best friend and his parents. When I was growing up, my best friend and I were involved in music all the time. Maybe we'll do a video about that someday, but his parents are like my parents. They're second parents to me. Specifically his dad was the one who really got me into collecting records, and his sort of garage. And when I get records from him, it's sort of like this, ubiquitous sort of place of just majestic everything called the Vinyl Garage. Why? Because it's a garage of tens of thousands of records. And when I go there, I pick through stuff and see if there's any gems in there that I want to take home. So obviously, you know, we make a good deal out of it. And, you know, I pitch him some money and he gets me a good deal on some of the stuff. And, you know, at this point in my collecting, it's filling a lot of holes or seeing stuff that I was like, damn, is that real? I got to look into that. Is that what I think it is? And so here in this haul here that I'll show you all, a little bit of all of those things. Some of those areas where I'm just kind of filling holes in the collection. Some of those other areas where I'm like, ooh, that's a good piece right there. That's a good pickup. So there's about 30 of them, and in hopes of not making this video 30 minutes long, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on them. This is mostly a classic rock haul, couple of jazz titles, and then some other kind of specialty items too. So I'll only spend a couple of different, I'll only spend a couple of seconds on each record. I won't go too in depth, but this really was an epic haul that I'm pretty pumped about, with some really cool pieces in here. So we'll go ahead, we'll dive right in. First pickup, when I saw this, I was like, I have never seen that out there. This is the debut album from King's X, Out of the Silent Planet. King's X is sort of what has become a progressive hard rock, alternative hard rock trio. This is their debut on Megaforce. Which there's some stories there too about maybe that was not the best place for them to start. Their best would be yet to come, but I was really excited to see this in there. The debut album original from King's X. Next, here's kind of a 1-2 punch. Some of you might know, no shame in the world, that I'm a really big Styx fan, and I really appreciate most of the areas of Styx outside of basically the Kilroy and stuff that went on in the 80s and through the 90s. But to me, I think a really underrated period of the band is their early stuff, well before they blew up with Lady and even before Tommy Shaw was in the band. And so the two that I was actually missing were their debut, as well as The Serpent is Rising. Now, both of these were released on Wood and Nickel, was their original record label that was distributed by RCA. So this is an original here. And this debut is actually a 70s reissue on that black RCA. But very, very different than what they would end up becoming several years later. But kind of cool, bluesy, hard rock, a little proggy, a cool piece of history there for any Styx fans. Here's when I saw this, I was like, you know, I might get some grief for this, but I don't care. When people say Europe, the first thing they think of is The Final Countdown. Many times that's the only thing they think of, but in fact, Europe was actually, and still is, a really, really great hard rock, European sort of power metal band. This is their second record, Wings of Tomorrow. Arguably one of their best. and right before they sort of blew up with the Final Countdown type stuff and Carrie and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really excited for this. No shame whatsoever in liking Europe. Give them a shot if you're into sort of some 80s heavier rock, power metal, that type of stuff, because it's good stuff. I'll save that one for last because that was sort of like the big winner. I was shocked. I completely forgot. I did not have a copy of this. One of the 3 69 records that was released by CCR, Green River, of course on the Blue Fantasy label. Just classic, one of their best, if not their best. And I didn't have a copy of it, so was definitely happy to add that. Let's go into some Bob Dylan. So you know, if you're a Bob Dylan collector, it takes a long time to fill out that collection. And especially when you start getting into some of the 80s pieces, it really is kind of filling holes. But that we'll get to. I'm not a huge comp guy or greatest hits kind of guy. But one of my favorite songs, if not my favorite song by Bob Dylan, is Positively 4th Street. And this is the record that you get it on, is Bob Dylan's Greatest Hits Volume 1. Of course, on the 2i Columbia. Yeah, I'm just happy to have that because I love Positively 4th Street. Is my favorite, if not one of my favorite Bob Dylan songs. These next two are a little bit more kind of fillers because I don't think they're viewed in the highest regard for Bob Dylan fans. But again, even bad Bob Dylan is 90% better than most of the other stuff out there. So, went Empire Burlesque, as well as Real Live. So, excited to have both of those added. Didn't have them before. This is a band I don't have anything of, and I really want their debut, because I know their debut is kind of what is viewed as sort of, you know, not quite maybe a prog masterpiece, but a progressive rock classic that is needed for collections. That band is Crack the Sky, but the album I went up and picked up is Animal Notes. So, yeah, this came out in '76 on Lifesong label. And, yeah, I've never actually listened to Crack the Sky. And so, again, I know that the debut is one that a lot of people go for and hold in high regard. But I'm excited to listen to that. Ever since I saw Peter Gabriel several weeks or months ago at this point, I've become a huge, huge fan and want to get all of his stuff. And here were 2 pieces that I was actually missing in sort of his earlier catalog. Of course, Peter Gabriel self-titled, also known as Melt. You can see why. I love this record. This has got, what does this have on it? Games Without Frontiers. I love that song. Of course, Biko is just crazy, crazy good song. Intruder is awesome as well. And then right next to that, this is kind of cool. Fully in the Shrink hype sticker and all is Peter Gabriel Plays Live. So very excited for these two. I think that kind of completes everything in my Gabriel collection. Up at least until, was it Up? After, whatever's after So, I don't have. You know, kind of obviously a classic hard rock band that doesn't get talked about enough, but probably should, is Humble Pie. But I don't know about you all who listen or collect Humble Pie records, but I don't see the early Peter Frampton stuff out there much. I see a lot of things like, you know, some of the later stuff after he left, but I was excited to see Rock On out there. I did not have this, of course, on that brown A&M label. Yeah, I don't see a ton of Frampton era Humble Pie out there, so I wanted to pick this up and make sure I had that. This was one I was so excited for. This is, I guess, sort of a cult-ish artist, but really his importance socially was super important. Known sort of in the American glam scene in the early to mid 70s, really became a gay icon, and I was reading was the first out gay rock artist to be signed to a major label. That artist is Joe Bryant. This is his second record, but it's a white label promo. Kind of a sucker for those. And yeah, this is artsy, this is glammy, this is a little psyche poppy type stuff, but I was so excited to see this. This is something I've wanted for my collection for a long time just because of his significance, not only as a person who loves glam, but also just his significance socially and how important he was in sort of the movement in a time that there wasn't a ton of out people. So I'm really happy to add this to the collection. Here's one of the bangers. When I saw this, I jumped all over it. a lot of you probably know, the P-Funk stuff is very difficult to find. If you do find it, it's not cheap. And if you do find it and it's not cheap, it's also very rarely clean. They were party records. They're usually just scuffed up like crazy. But as soon as I saw this, I knew I needed to have it. This is Funkadelic, one of the best album names ever. Funkadelic, this is Cosmic Slop. I think this is from '73. Of course, on Westbound. Super pumped for this. I love Funkadelic, and yeah, I just wish their stuff was more readily accessible and a little bit less expensive and in a little bit better condition. Here's one. This is their debut, which is sort of a super group in a sense. Everybody loves their debut, and then I think I just kind of was, I didn't want to look past their debut because it was so good, and I was just kind of always told, no, that's the one to get. You have to get the debut, and that's all that's worth it. And then I was reading, actually, their second record's really damn good too, and that is Sufficiently Breathless by Captain Beyond. For the label people out there on Capricorn, yeah, I'm excited to spin this again. That first record everybody sort of loves. It is sort of a staple in hard rock, hard psychedelic rock, progressive sort of stuff. But I've never listened to this, so I'm really excited to give this a spin. Band that actually has a bit of a connection from Humble Pie. If you know, when Peter Frampton left Humble Pie, it was replaced by Clem Clemson, who was originally in Coliseum. This is a hugely underrated band that not talked about a ton, but thinking about maybe doing a bit of a video on them. They have a number of different eras. This era is certainly more the bluesier, hard rock, progressive side. They went down a jazz fusion route later with Gary Moore in the band. But here you just have a killer lineup of I think John Heisman's in this band. I think David Greenslade's in this band. You obviously have Clem Clemson in this band. And so this is an incredible kind of, again, bluesy, proggy, jammy record. And yeah, super pumped to have it. The Grass is Greener by Coliseum. Funny enough, I'm a pretty big Pink Floyd fan, but I did not have any David Gilmour solo records in my collection. So when I saw these two, I was pretty pumped to pick them up. Of course, David Gilmour is self-titled, and then About Face. So super pumped to have these added. I do love David Gilmour, just never had his solo stuff in my collection. So we're excited to add that. I'll save that for the end too, because that's a pretty fun one. A few more here. Here's kind of a quadruple shot, if you will. One, I think, of the coolest bands coming out of the early 70s that sort of fronted the way for female rock bands that we don't really talk about a ton is Fanny. Fanny, all-girl rock band that are just awesome. I think, you know, at the time, they're probably viewed, just because of the generation, a little bit more of like a novelty, but they're a freaking great band. And so when I saw some Fanny in there, I don't see them in record stores a lot, I had to grab them. So the big rare one's the debut. That one's a little bit of a tougher one to find, but I was super pumped to add, let's see what orders this come in. This is their second one here. Charity Ball on Reprise. This is a pretty popular one here too, Fanny Hill. Pumped about both of those. I think one more of these is on a Reprise, is it? Yeah, Mother's Pride. Wacky cover there. And then they jumped and went over to Casablanca with Kiss and the Gang and released, was it Rock and Roll Survivors? Rock and Roll Survivors. So super pumped. I think they went a little bit more glammy here, which I'm totally on board with, obviously. So yeah, really excited to have those. Here's a shout out to Glenn Kellaway from the Basement. If you follow my channel, you'll probably follow Glenn Kellaway from the Basement. I know that this is his favorite Sly and the Family Stone record, so when I saw it, I knew I had had it. This is Stand. Of course, an original on that yellow Epic label. Yeah, I love Sly. I mean, kind of falls in that same sort of funk, soul, late 60s, early 70s stuff that I just absolutely love. So, yeah, great record. You know, here's one that I feel like I've seen in stores all the time and has just always passed up. But when I saw it and I was like, you know what? Now's the perfect time to do it, is this classic, Naturally, from J.J. Cale. I'm excited for this. Again, always seen it, never really picked it up or gave it much of a listen. This is the second pressing or the reissue, still on the Shelter label, but a different label variation from a few years later. So, yeah, very excited for this one. We love that cover. Classic. Another classic from kind of the mid-60s. This is also a little bit of a later reissue, I think in the mid-70s, early mid-70s maybe. Butterfield Blues Band, East West. On that label variation there. I think originally this was on the Brown Electra, the Big E. This is the more butterfly one. So yeah, super excited for this too. Not a cheap record to find out there. So yeah, really excited for this. Oh, that's another really fun one. Let's see here. A band, a British progressive band that I've been into more and more lately. They're sort of part of that second, third, maybe even fourth tier of progressive rock that we don't talk about. And a lot of that might be because of their singer. He is a little bit of an acquired taste. I do like him though. We're talking about Roger Chapman. I'm talking about the band Family. This is, what is this called? A Song for Me? A Song for Me. This is actually a UK press, which is pretty cool. 1970, I think this is their third record. Family's a great band. His vocals don't bother me at all. I mean, so much so that I'm like, people get turned off by this, but people are finicky. They get turned off by the smallest things. Sometimes you like what you like, which is cool. But I love this band Family. So it was super, super good to add this to the collection. A handful of jazz records. So I am a jazz fan. I haven't talked about that at all on the channel, but I'll talk a little bit about it here. If you're curious on jazz and don't really know where to start, don't really know where to go, you're overwhelmed by it, everything's overpriced, totally get that. Somebody that I would highly recommend and where to start with is, especially if you like guitar music, is Pat Metheny. So Pat Metheny, especially his ECM records, just a guitar virtuoso. His music's really accessible. It's clean. It's not out there. Super accessible, but also he's kind of a shredder too in the best of ways. So anytime I see a Pat Metheny record at a good price, I always try to grab them. Of course, there's like a million of them because he had so many iterations of the band. But here, picked up Off Ramp, picked up new Chautauqua. Somebody help my dumbass pronounce Chautauqua. Chautauqua? New Chautauqua. It's a great record. And then lastly, nice little promo copy with Charlie Hayden and Billy Higgins, Rejoicing. Again, these are cheap too. If you go to the Pat Metheny section in your jazz section of your local record store, typically these ECM releases that he's on are anywhere from $8 to $12. And they're just a great place to sort of dip your toes in if you're curious about the genre. So, saved a couple of bangers for last here. This is a record I've heard a lot of people talk about. It's not typically within my style, but I've heard so many people talk about it. The cover is just amazing. And I'm a big fan of the band that he was in before releasing this solo record. When I'm talking about Gene Clark's No Other. And this is also a white label promo, which is pretty banging. Kind of a sucker for those. Yeah, I'm excited for this. Again, is it typically what I'm into? I don't know. We'll have to see. I don't want to make that judgment before I listen to it. But something I know next to nothing about besides, obviously, his time in the Byrds. And I do like the Byrds, and a lot of people have talked about this record in the VC, so pretty pumped about that. Let's see. All right, second to last one. As soon as I saw this, you know, if you've ever seen like a record and you're like, I have no idea what that is, but just based on the cover, I need that, and I'm going to get that. Did a little bit more research, and, you know, just looking at the cover, I was like, this has got to be some kind of psychedelic prog band from the early 70s. And, of course, it was. The name of this record is From the Pond, from the band Froggy Beaver, from Omaha, 1973. Look at that freaking cover, man. How awesome is that? From the Pond, Froggy Beaver, hype sticker and shrink in tow. I think this is a private press, actually. From the Pond Records or Froggy Beaver Records. Yeah, I'm super pumped for this. Haven't actually spun it yet, but it sort of does fall within that psychedelic hard rock of the early 70s of bands that never really blew up. This is the type of band or record I feel like that someone you know, Dylan over at Noble Records or something like that would reissue. And again, I mean, who doesn't love that frog? Ribbit. Awesome. And last but not least, this was, as soon as I saw this, I was like, oh, but I got to have this. I got to figure out a way to take this home. I don't have any original Blue Note titles outside of some of the very, basically before they went to the Blue label, if you know the label variations for Blue Note. So late 60s, early 70s, they went to like the Blue label with the black B. But in terms of like the early 60s, 50s Blue Note stuff, I don't even have any Liberty pressing stuff until now. And so when I saw this and did a little bit of, you know, looking at the labels and all that, I was like, oh, this is an absolute banger of a record. So this is Blue Note 4049, Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, A Night in Tunisia. This lineup is kind of out of control. That's what's so fun about collecting jazz stuff, is you see these lineups and you just get so excited. So obviously Art Blakey on drums, Lee Morgan on trumpet, Wayne Shorter on tenor sax, Bobby Timmons on the piano, Jimmy Merritt on bass. And yeah, just a original non-Liberty pressing when they sold to Liberty, and then in the mid-60s reissued them on Liberty. This is the original with the 47 West 53rd address on it. I was just stoked to have this because I don't have any of that original Blue Note stuff, and yeah, I just love that type of stuff, and I love this lineup too. Typically anything with Lee Morgan on it, I try to buy. Most of those are like those Blue Note classic reissues or the Tone Poet reissues that are done today. So yeah, well, we did all this in about 22 minutes. Thanks for hanging out, but we all love the record haul videos. Hope everybody's doing well out there and enjoying their weekend. And yeah, appreciate you watching. And yeah, cheers. Take care and have a good week. Bye.